like it sounds.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Matt Wallace. I serve as Scottsville's Town Administrator. You're now viewing the meeting recording and stream for the Scottsville Special Meeting of Town Council. Today is December the 12th, 2022. The meeting is held in compliance with Virginia Freedom of Information Act and the state's open meeting laws. We're meeting in person at the Town Hall, 401 Valley Street. The meeting is also available with public participation options online and by phone. If you're viewing the meeting in the future on our YouTube channel, thank you very much. The local time here now is 8 minutes until 7 o'clock, the posted start time for the meeting. We're still getting set up and assembling our quorum, so I'll mute this line now. You can skip ahead forward on your video 7 minutes and you'll see us come to order. Thank you.
One, two.
Let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, first call roll, please.
Alex Bassett. Here. Bullet. Here. Driscoll. Here. Hines.
Here.
Tyson.
Here.
Kane.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Good, thank you. Stand have our pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 on the agenda is the consent calendar, consist of approval of the agenda, approval of past meeting minutes, approval of financial report for November 2022. Is a motion to accept the consent calendar. So moved, Mr. Mayor. To a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? What are you opposed to?
Well, we grouped all three of these together. I'm not opposed to the agenda. I have found some problems with the last minutes, the way they've been reported to us. I would suggest that the clerk get his notes and the Zoom video and go back and revise, because there's some discrepancies there. I cannot approve these minutes as submitted.
Is that the ones for November 21st? Speaking of, or is that the other, November 14th? Which one are we talking about?
Talking about the past council meeting.
I think we just voted, Mr. Mayor, though, too. It was just one of them.
There was two, 4, and nobody else voted, so. What happened? What is the issue?
Well, I'd be glad to meet with the clerk sometime this week and go over it, but if we have time. I don't think the minutes actually reflect what we did at those meetings. I have a problem with one of the developers' statements. I have a problem with a question that was asked of our town administrator, and I also have a problem with the discussion. And basically, what's reported in the minutes is not what happened. And, you know, we've gone over, in the past, and we put off the minutes, you know, approving for a month or 2 or 3 or 4 months. So I'm just asking, you know, we wait until the next council meeting to approve this group of minutes.
Okay. You make note of that?
Yes.
Can you meet with Mr. Payne
Yeah.
some point during the week and get this straight?
Yeah, I can set up something great now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Thank you.
So with the exception of the minutes for the meeting in November 22nd, November 21st. We have an approval of the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask, Javier, when do we get a copy of this financial report for November 2022?
Today.
Today? Yeah, I got mine an hour before this meeting. I haven't had time to look at it. And I'd like to look at it before I approved it as one vote. And I'd also, you know, like to pass it through our governmental services. 1 hour is just not enough time to look at this report. 10 business days.
Councilman, one thing I would like to say is just to remind you, this particular meeting is an unusual meeting in that you and Councilor Heisen rushed this meeting to happen. And by rushing this meeting, yes, you did. And by rushing this meeting to happen, unfortunately, you added an enormous burden on our town staff. And this meeting tonight that you all forced to happen the way that it did, you rushed the process that shouldn't have happened tonight. So, and you know that.
With all due respect, it was supposed to be a public forum. It didn't have to be a regular council meeting.
There was, what they did is, it ended up taking an enormous amount of staff time by their poor choice of what they did.
Well, I must have changed my ways, Mr. Driscoll, because if I rush this meeting, it looks like I'm starting to take my time to look at the rest of this, like the minutes and the financial report. So yeah, I'm not rushing that.
That sounds great.
What we asked for was a public forum tonight. We didn't ask to move the actual council meeting. Like this all could have been done next week as scheduled.
It's, if you think about what you've asked to do.
We didn't ask for any of this. We asked just for the public forum. We didn't ask for a full council meeting. So to have, you know, reports of chartered committees and the mayor's report and the vice mayor's report and approval of meeting minutes and everything else, that could have been next week. That wasn't, none of this was planned for or intended for tonight.
Sure.
Maybe we can move that till next week. We'll see how it goes.
And as far as it being rushed, when initially it was brought up at a work session that we were going to have it in January, most people were fine with that. In the interim, what we found out was that it was misreported in the Daily Progress and other media outlets that it had been approved. And the people that I spoke to in town at Baines, many were under the assumption that these apartments had been approved because it was reported incorrectly by the media. It had passed planning commission. The idea of making this public forum happen tonight and not wait another month was so that people could be more informed and understand that it hadn't been approved and get a chance to speak on it. I mean, the rush was not intended for any other reason but to put a lot of misinformation straight.
Misinformation needs cleared up. Absolutely agree with you.
And I don't think, you know, that I violated any parliamentary procedure at all.
We will just disagree.
The parliamentary procedure doesn't have a speedometer on it.
True. Good point.
Okay, so the consent calendar is not going to approve. Mr. Bowling joined us yet?
Yes, sir.
He is on the line. Because, just hold your booze until I'm finished here. Friday afternoon, the developers offered some new ploppers, which came in late Friday afternoon, which you know nothing about, which the council just received information on that over the weekend. And the law is very strict on this. And it says that until our staff has had an opportunity to review these proffers and make a recommendation to council, we cannot go forward. So this public hearing, thank you all for coming, but this public hearing is postponed until a further date.
I object.
Wait a minute,
You
yeah,
can't object because it's a legal matter, and if you want to put yourself under the opportunity to be sued, you can go right ahead and do it. So here, Mr. Bowling, well, everybody,
I will defer to Mr. Bowling.
Mr. Bowling, would you explain it to these fine folks of the council and the audience what the law says?
Well, I will try. First, can you, everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
I apologize for not being there. I'm laboring under some hip surgery and I'm not authorized to drive yet. Basically, as I understand it, from what I've been told, you had an additional proffer that came in on Friday. Proffer law changed dramatically in 2016. What the proffer law requires by statute is that the applicant on or before the meeting date submit in writing proffers, which the applicant did, the last proffer being on Friday. The legal problem that I see comes in with notice not only to town council, but also to town citizens. The notice problem that I see is that if you go on the town website and if you look at the agenda that you received from the town administrator last Thursday or Friday, it has 4 proffers listed and now there are 5. In addition, the proffer itself requires under the proffer statute that it's not enough that somebody make an offer, a voluntary offer in a rezoning matter to give you, for example, $1 million. I'll give you $1 million if you rezone. You can't really say great.
Yeah.
You have to go through the process set out in the statute, which requires that there be an analysis done of the proffer itself and that it be reasonably related to the purpose of the rezoning. That is the application and the need for what is being proposed, the proffer to be used for. Matt has previously done an analysis for the 4 proffers that have been before you for some time. He has not had an opportunity to do analysis of the new proffer. That's one problem caused by the proffer statute. In other words, you could have a proffer before you for $1 million and you could accept it, but I don't think that's would be legal. That is how I see it. In addition, when you have a rezoning, you're required to comply with the notice requirements, and one of those requirements is that you have to properly advertise the proceedings so the good citizens of Scottsville can put their 2 cents worth into you and give their opinion and have it heard. In this particular case, it was not possible for really any of the citizens of the town, except for town council, who received an email because of the late date of the proffer, to give their 2 cents worth on the proffer, whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, whether how it affects the project and how it affects their vote.
Mr. Bowling, I have a question when you're done there, if you don't mind. Would that not fall on the developer for failing to get it in for the advertised meeting?
You just have to get it in before the meeting.
The only legal requirement under the law is that the proffer has to be in writing and has to be submitted in writing prior to the meeting date, which was done. Now, what some localities have done is because they have a large number of rezonings and a large number of proffers, they've adopted procedures whereby proffers have to be submitted within X date of the meeting or they won't be considered. You don't have any procedure such as that. principally because you've never had really any proffers before. You have a paucity of rezoning requests before you over the last many years. So the law has been complied with.
Can we vote to just not consider the proper, and just say,
Well, you certainly, a majority of the quorum can do whatever they want to, but there's not only your rights here, sir, there's also the rights of the public. And then the applicant has rights under his rezoning request. So you can take whatever action you consider, but you have to remember that it has to be legal, and the applicant has a chance to weigh in too on that.
Mr. Bowling, can you give us a definition of the word proper, on-site proper, off-site proper, and unreasonable proper, as they are mentioned in the Code of Virginia 15.2-2303.4. You got your copy handy? I've got mine.
I don't have it before me. I'll try to do it from memory. You can, Mr. Payne, you stop me if I've gone astray, because I'm not.
You stop me if I go straight.
I'm just doing it off the top of my head. But basically what happened before 2016 is you could have a proffer for anything and everything, as long as it vaguely related to the project. In 2016, the General Assembly narrowed the scope of proffers so that they related solely to three matters. One is public health and safety, the other is traffic, and the third one just escaped my memory completely, Mr. Payne. But there are three. And then they provided that not only they set up this procedure, not only that you receive a proffer, it has to be voluntary. In other words, the town council can't say to the applicant, you made a proffer for X, but if you do Y, we'd approve the rezoning. That's entirely improper. It's illegal, and it will get all that will do is get the application approved that perhaps town council doesn't want to see approved. So what they did in 2016 is they required that an analysis be done. And as you point out, Mr. Payne, there are two kinds of proffers. One is on-site, and the other is off-site, okay? And for an off-site proffer, it has to be reasonably related to the impact that the project is going to have on the town. And in addition, it has to be reasonably related to the public health and safety reason that the proffer is going to be made for. In this case, I understand that that's the category that the applicant has made. I confess that I have not actually seen the written proffer myself. I'm now going from what Nancy Gill put out on her podcast this afternoon late as to what it contained, and I just listened to it. And that leads me to another problem you have with notice, is that none of this has been put on your website or is available to the public. When these proffers were advertised, this rezoning application was re-advertised properly, but it directed citizens to, if they wanted to know have further information about this application, they were directed to come to the town administrator's office where they could look at it. Well, none of that's been available. At least that's what Mr. Lawless tells him. And it's not Mr. Lawless's fault that all this occurred on Friday afternoon. And it's not town council's fault that they're in this dilemma tonight.
Okay, let me let you catch your breath if I could, sir. And my question is, are these reasonable proffers? Now, first, and everybody bear with me, and I'll be through. Do we have a certified copy signed by the applicant / owner referring to these proffers prior to 7 o'clock this evening?
This is what I have.
Do you have a certified copy signed by the applicant owner?
No.
No. Okay. That's not good. It's required, I believe in it, Mr. Bowling.
Well, no certified copy is required. All it's required is a writing from the applicant to the town administrator.
Okay. So the writing that I see in front of me, and also in the discussion with Mr. Lawless, talking about the two new offers, if I can say offer instead of proffer, because I don't believe they're proffers. What has been submitted is a suggestion or proposal that the developer get with Albemarle County and come up with a TIF or some type of revenue sharing. It's only a proposal. It could be a thought. There's nothing really binding.
The one
But that doesn't meet the definition of the term profit, does it?
Mr. Payne, the one I've been told about also says that if that's not acceptable, he agrees to put $100,000 towards new pumps for the levee.
Yes, sir. That's my second point. And bear with me. So he defines that as an off-site profit. Is that correct? The $100,000.
The improvement is off-site, so you're correct.
Thank you. Off-site profits address impacts outside the development's boundaries. It includes all cash profits. So if Albemarle County comes to an agreement with the developer, which I'm against because we got some folks up here that are pretty smart, we can handle that ourselves. But if they do, the $100,000 is off the table. If Albemarle County decides they don't want that, then we have an offer of the $100,000 that is earmarked to replace the pumps. Now, the Code of Virginia number I just quoted says, and I'll just bring it to you in a nutshell, and we're talking about the levy causing some type of public safety atrocity, if you will. It's not what that levy will do to the development, it's the impact the development has on the levy. I say there's none. It's working just fine, designed, put in here by the Corps of Engineers, regularly maintained, inspected. Everything's working fine. That development, proposed development, has no impact on this levy.
Eddie, man.
Now, don't wait. Thank you.
No, I'm gonna.
No, wait,
I'm gonna-
please. I've got to go into point two.
Mr. Payne has the word.
Thank you. It must be new facilities or expansion of existing facilities. This $100,000 could not be used for a new facility, and it couldn't be used to expand the facility. In fact, this levy doesn't impact that development at all. Now, does it impact public safety? Of course. And looking out here, one many of y'all around here in 69 and 72, with the markers on the wall over here, but the Bird Street and Harrison Street was never a problem. People coming from the plant took a left and headed on out. They were 200-year floods. We don't need an expansion, and it's not going to be a new facility. And then finally, number 4 of the same Code of Virginia says repairs or maintenance to existing facilities do not qualify as profit. Now, you can argue what is a repair or maintenance. Well, if it's broke, you repair it. But if it's obsolete or just totally unrepairable, you have to maintain that facility. I contend this money cannot be used, and we're talking about money we don't even have, and they should not be identified as profit. Therefore, we have no discussion for another meeting, and we can continue on. I yield the floor.
Well, Mr. Payne, if I could follow up, the issue really is, and you could be, let's assume you're entirely correct, but the issue is what the statute is set up to do. And the town administrator, under the way you have your form, the zoning administrator, the town administrator, needs to consider whether this proffer is reasonable. He could make the same points that you just made, or he could disagree with you. I don't know. My point is that none of this has been done, and that's what the Code of Virginia envisions. It's.
And you know, I've got a problem with that too, Mr. Bowling, because
Hold on.
the developer came in and said, Burr Street's fine, you know, we don't think it's gonna be a traffic problem. VDOT came in and said, yep, we'll sign off on that. You know, we'll make it work. The Timmons Group came in with a very impressive report. Not one time in any of those discussions, to my recollection, was any kind of impact concerning public safety, especially flooding. It was not addressed until 5 o'clock Friday afternoon. And they've had 4 years and 2 years to discuss it. Thank you.
Well, my question is about, I think lots of people turned out here tonight, and I would like, in some way, to respect that people have things to share. I see notes, so I feel like people have things that they have time to share.
Yeah.
So in terms of our agenda, if we can't hold the public hearing, I'm assuming we also have to suspend the item for discussion and action, correct?
Well, what,
Well, I'm just getting, I want to clarify that, because following that is the regular public forum. And so we have another piece of our agenda here tonight that is designed to have people share their thoughts. Now, that obviously wouldn't be part of the forum, you know, it's public hearings usually, but.
Speak, but it doesn't mean that what you say is going to be reported in the context of a public hearing. If you're expressing your views, and you're certainly welcome to come up to the podium and say whatever's on your mind.
And with that being said, we will take into consideration every comment that is made. I mean, whether it's
So, I mean, we're not
considered the public forum or not.
Ma'am,
Is it being recorded though, so that anybody on Zoom does know how the public truly feels about this?
there's an audio recording and a video.
Yes.
I have a question about the proffers and it coming out on Friday and our process for handling all of this. Number one, I'm getting conflicting, and I just pulled out my email to make sure that I was remembering correctly as opposed to what we were hearing. Is the proffer tax sharing with Albemarle County or $100,000 for the pump? If Albemarle approves tax sharing, does that negate the $100,000 for the pumps? I'm asking you.
That's how I read it.
Okay.
The tip
Because
deal
in
was-
the email that you sent me on Friday, I don't mean to be throwing under the bus, but I quote. Important factory update below, the applicant is revising their voluntary proffers prior to the town meeting on Monday. There's $100,000 to replace the flood control pumps and potentially more money in revenue sharing arrangement with Albemarle. So I spent my weekend assuming that $100,000 was no matter what. So now I'm finding out that if Albemarle says we'll do a tax share, we don't get that
Or would
100,000.
be better than him.
Okay. Then my other part of this, going back down to the bottom of it, was I believe we must hold our advertised public hearing on December 12th, but also another hearing in January with proper notice of the revised proffer package.
Mr. Rowland,
I absolutely want everybody to have a chance to review the proffer package. I would not want to do anything improper and not give people a chance to review what needs to be reviewed and take everything into consideration. That being said, when was this decision? I just looked. I got no heads up, no email, no nothing that we were not going to do a public hearing tonight. We were all blindsided by this. And you asked us to approve the agenda that says public hearing when you knew that we were gonna not have the public hearing.
And I would say that the public hearing was off. This
That kind of looks bad.
This was finalized about 5:30 this afternoon with after about an hour and a half conversation between Matt and Mr. Bowling and myself. And to keep everybody up here from being sued, we decided it was best to postpone the public hearing to a future date.
I wish I knew that before I took the afternoon off to prepare for tonight, because now it's financially impacted me as
So
well.
Mr. Eisen said about denying it, I feel like I didn't get a clear understanding of, is that a violation if we deny it?
Proper.
I don't think we should do that until everybody's had a chance to review
And
it.
I haven't.
That's
I'm looking
bad.
at
form.
legally, is that a violation if we deny it?
We cannot vote until we have a public hearing.
Mr. Bowling, Alex has a question for you. Yes, Mr. Bowling, when Mr. Heisen asked you about denying the fifth proffer, I feel like I didn't get a good understanding, I might be behind the curve here, but is that legal to deny it?
Well, you're asking, I mean, all these questions are difficult, but basically, I don't think that notice has properly been given. And also the applicant, the developer has rights here too. So I think you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, if I can put it that way. If you go ahead tonight and you have a public hearing and hear it, then the people who approve it, the people who are opposed of it will have a potential remedy. And they may well win. They think they have a good remedy. There hadn't been adequate notice. And if you deny it, you've got the other side of the coin. And so given that dilemma, as I see it, and it seems like discretion is called for here, and there's a simple remedy. You let Matt have time to do the analysis and determine, give you his 2 cents worth. That's what you pay him for, and that's what he's hard to do, to determine whether the proffer is reasonable or not under the proffer statute. And you may agree with that or not once you get his opinion, and that's up to you ultimately to make that final decision, not Matt. And then you also let the public ascertain exactly what the proffer is. I can just, from listening, there's confusion about what it is. And then decide how they want to go from there. And that will give some time to sort these things out. And right now, there just hadn't been time. And again, this is not the mayor's fault or town council's fault or the town administrator's fault. And I can't speak for the applicant. I don't know why he didn't do it sooner, but he didn't. But he did it within the time that, as I understand it, I thought he submitted a written proffer before the time of the meeting. And that's what I was told. And that's all the statute requires. And now whether or not it meets the requirements of the proffer, I don't know. That's what Matt's supposed to do his analysis for, and that's what the statute envisions.
I have a question.
I'm having some confusion though about this idea of the problem of putting the thing off and not doing it in the normal course of business. I'm confused about that. This is not a matter that the town does all the time. And as a matter of fact, they've never done it since I've been with the town, and there's been very little, if any, development for the town for the last 20 years. So I doubt it's been done in the last 20 years. So it's not something that you all are familiar with. In that case, my advice would be to just stay with the regular course of proceedings and let the issues sort themselves out. And then when the issue comes before town council, let town council render a decision, and a majority of a quorum voting in favor or against the proposal rules.
I have a question, just a moment, thinking about procedure. So is there a way we could prevent this in the future? Or can we ask the applicant to sign something that says there will be no future, these are the proffers, there will be no future proffers? I mean, they could do this next month, the night before, and say, we want this proffer, and I just think it's disrespectful.
Well, I don't think.
Is there a way we could monitor this and hold them accountable for being, upfront and forthright and doing things in the right way?
Well, again, I don't think it's a matter of, again, I'm not in your shoes, sir, but I don't think it's disrespectful. This is the way the development process works in a lot of other localities. And as I said, a lot of localities get proffers all the time. It's just not something you're familiar with, and they've adopted procedures where they say proffers are required to be submitted a week before, and you can adopt procedures for that going forward if you
We
want.
can, okay, let's do that.
Well, I would give it some thought. Again, when you act off the top of your head, my experience has been that you cause problems for yourself. Decide what you want to do, study it a little bit, and then enact it.
Matt, do we have a copy of the sign off of Crawford?
Yes, sir. I tried to put a story from the initial application to the final proper statement in your manila folder there. It's the last page.
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
Well, that's my question to Mr. Bowen.
I'm sorry you're all in this position. It's an uncomfortable position to be in. But I just don't see any way to resolve. I think haste would cause more problems in the long run than just letting the matter play itself out as the statute envisions, and then town council ultimately renders a decision one way or the other on the issue.
Let's turn to our agenda where we can public comment.
Let's move down to public forum. Item number 5. Those who wish to speak on any topic are welcome to come to the podium and speak. We try to keep it under 5 minutes. Debbie?
But you are encouraging people to come back at your next free public hearing. Correct?
When it's published, that's going to happen, and we don't know when it's gonna happen right now.
Are you able to let people know before they, when that?
It'll be published in the newspaper as per law.
Okay.
Yeah, I have just one question.
Yes, ma'am.
This came in at 5:30 on Friday,
Well, after the late afternoon.
but you're saying that you didn't talk about it, discuss it until about 5 today.
I was on the phone with Mr. Bowling a number of times today, trying to figure out how we can proceed since we hadn't complied with the regulations of the law.
So when did it come to pass that it was decided that that having the meeting tonight would not be within the bounds of the law?
This afternoon about 5:30.
Okay. This is an important topic. I think the turnout shows that people are interested, they're concerned. And I just don't understand how something this important would take, what is that, 48 hours? More than that. To come to,
Well, here's the problem. How are we supposed to get the word out to everybody in this room?
how'd you get the word out there tonight? The sun was out there on the street at 10 this morning. Facebook, just people, have you read some of the comments on Scottsville? But there are ways to get that information out and not tie up people's time.
However, that's not the point. The point is, the law says that our staff has to review this thing and make a recommendation.
You know, I'm not
Okay,
arguing
I
with
understand.
you. My point is, there are a lot of people interested in this topic. They care enough to rush through dinner, get home from work, rush through dinner, and get to a meeting only to be told, sorry, guys, can't do it. I'm not questioning, I understand, I'm smart enough to understand why the meeting can't go on. I'm just baffled. It's a polite word I come up with. Of why that information was not distributed, disseminated somehow, you know, Facebook, the town website. This is the talk of the town, okay? One person get it, they're gonna tell 5 other people. So to me, this is just everybody's doing the best they can, and I want to thank you all volunteering to be on the council. I volunteered a lot of places, and I know sometimes it is a thankless job. Okay, so with that said, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I just want to make a point. Everybody needs to bring their A game to this. And the notification should have gone out. You know, people can talk, don't make them feel better. That's all a lot of people want to do. But this gives me no sense of yeah, the town can handle this proposal. They got this, they know what they're doing. This is gonna be a good thing for Scottsville. I just don't, I don't get that. So that's all I want to say. And again, I know everyone's doing the best they can, but you just wasted a lot of people's time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, is Mr. Gaskins here? Okay. I've got trouble with my eyesight. Mr. Gaskin, you,
Just pay for a minute, please.
I said, Mr. Gaskin, are you here? Can you come over here for a second, please? Thank you so much. You're younger than I am. And I don't handle steps so good.
Yes, sir.
Come on, I got something I want to see. Can you point out your signature on this?
There is no signature, it's an email, sir.
Thank you. This is not a proper approval, Mr. Mayor. It needs a signature per the Code of Virginia. Is that correct, Mr. Bowling?
I haven't seen it, sir, and sometimes signature emails are considered proper communications. There's an email act, sir. I'd have to look at it. He intended it to be binding on him and he sent it. It may well be as good as a signature. But again, you know, Mr. Payne, I'm having a little trouble here. You've got a situation that could expose you to legal issues of the worst kind that you never want to get exposed to, and that is procedural due process violations, which have nothing to do at all with the substantive issue before you. And my advice is always going to be, when you confront those possibilities of procedural due process violations, that you go back and make sure all the process is due is given. And therefore then you remove the threat of future litigation, which can negate whatever the majority of the council decides to do in this matter, whatever it is. And that's my only legal concern. And for that reason, I'm going to always be cautious in my opinions, and I'm going to advise you to do the process, let it play out. There's just not, to my mind, it's not worth the legal risk to get involved in litigation over whether or not process was properly due, when the issue before you is a substantive issue, which has nothing to do in the end with procedural due process. Does that make any sense? I just want you to try to understand where I'm coming from. And that's the dilemma that I see before you.
Yes, sir, I understand that.
And it's easily cured. That's the other thing about it, about curing procedural due process. You just do the procedure.
The only thing I've asked for is clarification tonight. I haven't asked for anything else procedure-wise, clarification of terms, making sure if there is a signature required, that it is on the document prior to our meeting at 7 tonight. I just want people to explain. I want to ask a hard question, okay? And I'm not trying to fast forward this at all. I've been accused of it, but I'm not, because I want it right. And if I see something that isn't right, like omitted signature or minutes that aren't proper, I want the answers. It's time this town started doing things the right way. Thank you.
To piggyback on what Bill was saying, and I apologize, taking away from the public forum part of this. This email was received at 1:19 on Friday. It was sent out, at least to me, I'm assuming other council members within the same time frame, at 2:58 on Friday. Why council members were blindsided tonight that this was not going to happen, and why this decision wasn't made Friday afternoon as opposed to 5:30 on Monday, I don't know. But I'm really upset about the process of how this happened. I mean, to not even give us a heads up in an email that this was not going to happen tonight, I think was
We have a meeting.
really
next-
unfair.
We have a meeting next week. Could we just have the public hearing next week? I mean, a lot of these things will still be fresh in our mind, and then we get it done before Christmas.
Public hearing until the staff has made their recommendation.
And I can hustle that. And with respect to science, the conversation Mr. Bowling went through Friday afternoon and through today, and we were on the phone at 5 o'clock, and was trying to get to a valid public hearing with a decision that waits. But his advice is that, while the public forum can and should happen, I want to hear from everybody. The legal notice on the public hearing needs to come later. The soonest day that we can meet our advertisement requirements, bulletin board, newspaper, website, and everything, would be the 27th of December.
I understand all of that, and I want due process, and I want to put this off and let everything be reviewed and done correctly. I just feel like we could have come to that decision prior to 5:30 today, and I feel like even if it was at 5:30 today, a Facebook notification would have reached half the people in this room, and phone calls and letting each other know would have reached half of the other half, where people wouldn't be rushing out here tonight, and where we wouldn't all be preparing for tonight and thinking that this was gonna happen. I think we need a better process.
No.
Hi, I'm Clay Cruzeo at 510 East Main Street. I am curious if you would have kept it the work session that it was supposed to be tonight, if this would have all been alleviated. But anyway, the last time we spoke about housing, I gave data, statistics, and facts, and we had supporters, and I didn't change any of your minds. So I'm not going to try that again. I'm here to provide expert testimony as to what it is like to live across the street from an active industrial site. Because that's the question here with this SUP. Are we changing the zoning to make it commercial to add apartments with this SUP, or are you keeping it the by right? That's the question. Now, what in countless hours of observation of my industrial site, what I've determined that brings, which for anyone who doesn't know where 510 East Main Street is, that is across the street from the train gateway station. I have determined it brings trucks that come in of all shapes and sizes at all hours of the day and night. It brings strangers, sometimes by the van load, to come in, do work, and then leave. They bring garbage, and I'm not even talking about the pollution. I mean the actual garbage that they leave behind. And it brings noise, which is protected by our zoning ordinance. Now, the smartest thing I think that exists, in my opinion, of this SUP is the dark skies provision, which, as you know, I hope is not a part of the natural industrial zoning ordinance. I'm lucky because in my industrial site, the stuff they keep there, nobody wants. So they don't even lock the gate. They're not worried about securing it. But I'm pretty sure that whatever goes into that industrial site, whether it be a construction yard, whether it be an industrial park, or whether in a year, Amazon figures out that this property is available and decides they want to put a fulfillment station in there, I think they're going to want to keep it secure. I have an article here about a Amazon fulfillment center that was commissioned in August and is already up and built and operational, that it would be smaller. This one is smaller than ours. I'll leave these up here for anyone to take. And we can go ahead and pass the description that the, so theirs is smaller. But I'm pretty sure whatever goes there, they're going to light the heck out of it. So you're talking stadium style lighting, 3 times the size of the food line that will be visible on both sides of the river. Change is coming, and it isn't because of young liberals. Change is coming because change is inevitable. The question becomes, will this council be an agent for change? Will they be a facilitator of change by using what powers they have, which is in the SUP process, to make that change something that they want to see, or at least something closer to what they'd like to see? Or are they going to be victims of change, which is what leaving that property to the by right ultimately does? It is my sincere hope that we do not leave that property to its by right zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll keep it short, because we got 5 minutes to left. So anyway, I just want to let you know, my name's Walter. How many of y'all on council know who I am? 2 of y'all. Well, just to give you a little heads up, I've lived in the town limits for 51 years. I don't know how many people in here since they've been in town limits for 51 years. I know this has been a project for a long time. I do not even know that this is a public forum. I live 5 minutes from here. And my mind's still here, and I cannot recall once in the last 5 years that any of y'all, anybody, come and knock on my door and ask me, hey, what do you think about us doing this with the
power plant, what do you think about doing this? Now look where we are. We're right here, in my opinion only, y'all tried very hard to make this county into something it's not. Now, well, we got all this legal stuff we gotta deal with. Had y'all been focused on trying to maintain the town and keep it the town that people move to, it's basically Scottsville, quaint little small town life. But never been a small town life, if you wanna bring all these houses in, you wanna bring all this stuff in. Yeah, little by little is fine. If you wanna turn this into Crozet, let us know that way some of us can move away from it. The other thing I want to say is that, yes, I understand research has been done, studies have been done, and everything else. But you gotta realize these people, they're gonna tell you what you want to hear. They're gonna make it sound good. The grass always looks greener on the other side, but when you walk over there, it's not quite as green as it looks when it's from afar. My biggest question is, who's it gonna benefit? Is it gonna benefit one of y'all, and one of y'all get something under the table? I know it's not gonna benefit me, it's not gonna benefit half the people in Scottsville.
There you go.
And the other thing, we have a lack of resources. The last time I checked, and feel free, anybody can, send me a message recommend. We have 2 full-time police officers, 2 part-time police officers. They can barely take care of what we got going on now. They're doing the best they can. I don't fault them for that or whatever. But how can you expect for what we have to take care of something we can barely meet on a daily basis? Let's just go ahead and bring in another couple hundred people. I hope there are some people in the audience that hopefully they'll come up here and speak. We don't have the infrastructure for this stuff. We don't have the water, we don't have what it takes to do this. It sounds good on paper, but in reality, it's not gonna work. And the other thing is, all the talk about where the money comes from or whatever, but what happens when it all fails? If it does fail, if it doesn't fail. If it does fail, Albemarle County takes over, guess what? What's the good to have y'all for town council if we're gonna have Albemarle County take over there? I want y'all to remember, you are elected officials. You're to represent us, not yourself. You need to reach out, you need to talk to the community, find out what they want. We are allowed to have our own opinions, but you know what? One person cannot speak for 500 people or 200 people, whatever the number is. Y'all need to reach out. Remember, you are elected officials. We put you here, we can remove you from here. The other thing is, I've got a little link, someone just sent to me earlier, and already, bear with me, it's called the Scottsville Loft, scottsvilleloft.com. They've already showed how you can move in it. They've got their ducks in a row. Did y'all get in the business or get involved in something way above your head? Maybe. And I just I'm one of the few people who've been here for a long time, and nobody's ever asked my opinion. Could I be down here at every town council meeting? I could. But I voted for y'all because I thought y'all were gonna do what's best for the town, not yourself. That's all I have to say.
And anybody else? Dr. Rio?
I've heard a lot of comments, people talking about, if the apartments go through, that the population of Scottsville could more or less be doubled. I think that's looking very narrowly at Scottsville. I don't live in Scottsville, I live in Albemarle County. I shop here. I volunteer here, my wife goes to the church here. We go to the restaurants, the brewery here. I am like a lot of the other people in the 6, 8, 10 mile radius who, when asked where we live, we say we're in Scottsville. In that area, there's probably 8,000 to 10,000 people. There has been an increase in size in that area because I can tell you, driving out to my home, homes have been built over the last 8 to 10 years I've been there. And that has not changed the character of the Scottsville, the town itself. So I think when you think of an increase in the population, don't think of an increase in the population of the people within just Scottsville, but think of the area, the general area. And in that way, when you're talking about increase in number of units of 200, there's of the thousands that are around, it's not that big a percentage.
I'd just like to thank you all for your time, and I think some of the animosity here is misdirected, quite bluntly, because this is all a result of a late filing, which frankly I've seen done before as a tactic. Unfortunately, I think that frustration should be more with the developer than with this council. I understand your need, and I understand your eagerness to avoid any kind of confrontation or litigation. But having said that, I look forward to appearing at the next meeting, and I'd also like to say that I'd like to leave you with one thought. In planning, high density residential is the highest demand on any service, with essentially the lowest return in revenue to pay for that. Think about that, because I'll be back for points. Thank you.
I beg your pardon, could you give your name for the record, sir?
Sure, Michael Knowles.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Not going to comment tonight, but I think that everyone here has great concern in the issues that are in front of this board. We've now had to reschedule this issue due to the appropriate legal analysis made by your attorney, and that it should be done the safe and proper way. What I'm asking is for all of you to commit to a timetable, so every person in this room who wanted to be heard can be heard. They need to know when the next meeting is going to be, and they need to know it now. We need to know how long it's going to take him. We need to know how long it will be before we can be back in front of you. We ask that there be advanced information, and it not come on a date like December 27th in the middle of the holidays. It shall be, or should be, at a time when everyone who was here and has been disrupted and unable to speak whatever their piece was is able to do it on another day, all at the same time, all with the same amount of information in front of them. Thanking the people who spoke tonight, hoping they'll speak again. Thank you.
Thank you. Podium's open.
Oh, I think this gentleman got up before you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good evening, Charles Armstrong with Southern Development. And I want to get up just to speak to a few things. Starting with what I said to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and that was just a thanks for your time doing this. People don't understand how much time you all personally put into this for Scottsville. So thank you. And I thank them for their deliberative process. And that's something that you can see how important this is to the town. And so I appreciate your deliberative process on this as well. We are who will be redeveloping the factory if the apartments are not approved. Dr. Hurt has owned this property for a long time, and we are buying it from Dr. Hurt. And you have a wonderful picture here that illustrates exactly how big this place is. When you compare the size of that building and the property surrounding it to, say, all of Valley Street, it covers it. So we see potential there. And what we don't see is potential for big manufacturing like has been there. The building's outdated for that purpose. It has ceilings that do not accommodate the high ceiling heights that new modern manufacturing wants, and it's not close enough to interstate highways, which is also something that is an absolute must. So whether we priced it as absolute rock bottom rents as we could, I don't think we could attract a single user in that industrial scenario. And industrial is all that is allowed there right now, per the ordinance. So that's what we would do if that's the decision that town council makes. And I just want to give an idea for you all. I've spoken to some of you about this already briefly, but and on the record that the industrial users we see here are probably smaller contracting companies, maybe mid-size site work contractors, lawn, landscape. A lot of construction trades would be interested in space like this, I think. The ones that would be interested in it, I think, are the ones that are looking for the value proposition. Zion Crossroads is a superior industrial location to this, just because of interstate access and proximity to Richmond and Charlottesville. So this would have to be priced at lease rates that are significantly lower than Zion Crossroads, and by significant, I think probably half. So I don't think there's a single tenant that would take all 180,000 square feet, or even that would take 30,000 square feet at a time. That's a lot of space. So I think we're talking about 30 tenants. There's lots of loading docks on the space, and it can accommodate it. And it can be divided internally pretty inexpensively. It needs a couple of patches in the roof or a couple of drips of water come in with the building is sound. It's got great bones. And it can have the lights turned back on pretty easily. I want to be clear that we partnered with Echelon on this, and they're running this apartments show, and we are not the majority partner in that situation, but we partnered with them because they are experts at historic redevelopment. What they're proposing would preserve the building and the history that's there, and bring new life to it in the form of apartments. That's not our strength. And we are primarily residential developers, but not multifamily or historic redevelopment developers. We have done some industrial. In fact, we've done some at Zion Crossroads. So we have a little bit of expertise. It's not our bread and butter, and we don't think that that is the best choice. We think it's the biggest risk. It's the biggest leap of faith for investors in that, because it's an enormous investment of capital to try it, to try the apartments. We all who are involved think it will work, but it is the risky option for the investor. The less risky option is the reopening of industrial space there. But like I said, that comes with industrial users, and that comes with truck traffic, trailers, really anybody that we can lease it to. And we would be enthusiastic of getting the word out about that as quick as we can once a decision, yes, no, is made. I think Echelon will be very disappointed with a no decision if that's what this council wants on the apartments. But we're going to be fine, and we're going to still be here. We're still going to be involved in Scottsville either way, yes or no. And so I said that to the planning commission after really only coming out to say thank you to them. They asked a number of questions, and all of what I just told you resulted from their questions. So I figured it would be good to deliver that information here as well. But that's the choice that we think there is. And we have to go forward one way or another. It's something we can't let our investment, our purchase of this land languish. The longer it sits, the more it falls into disrepair. Right now, it's, some of you have been inside, it's quite a sight to see the state that it's in. But once the few little cosmetic things are fixed up and it's clean, stored stuff that's in there, it's a very viable building. And
Mr. Armstrong, can I ask you a question?
yeah, if I may have one more thing. If anybody in town or out of town is interested in seeing the place, we are happy to show them. There's nothing hidden in there. we need to go with people, somebody would from our organization. And so that invitation is open, I'd like to set up an open house date. And can coordinate that with Matt, if he wouldn't mind helping, and if the interest is there for people who are interested in seeing it. But that's it, thank you.
Just a quick question would be. First of all, thank you for clarifying that, because there's been a lot of misunderstanding of the town that this was what you're gonna do, or you made it clear this is what you're intending. What's the time frame that if we went that route, if that happened and the apartments didn't happen, what's the timing of how that would work, or at best to your understanding?
It has an almost unthinkable amount of furniture inside of it. I gotta think it takes at least 6 months just to get that out of there. So I think a 6 month to 2 year time frame is reasonable to get something going. And this isn't our plan A, so we really haven't done anything more than kind of napkin analysis of what this looks like, to know it's viable and to know that at least some demand is there. I've had a couple calls kind of out of the blue already from contractors who are interested in space like this. One of them is a heavy site work contractor who's currently in alcohol, but is looking for other space where our alcohol won't be available much longer. But it'll take us a little time. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's not going to be 3 years either. I don't think.
Mr. Armstrong, when did Southern Development Homes purchase that property at 800 Burton?
So I don't think I'm saying anything that I can't say, but we have an agreement with the current landowner to buy all of his property in Scottsville, and he owns a significant amount.
So the rumors that we've heard that Dr. Hurt, the owner, has sold all his properties here are false. He still owns 800 Burr Street.
I think you're splitting hairs, but
Okay,
we have contracted to buy all of it. It's not an option. It's not a maybe. It's a definite with personal guarantees that it will happen from me and my partners. And so that means something to us. It's happened.
but technically you don't own it yet.
We don't own the factory property yet.
And then the Echelon would being a partner of yours would be a co-owner of this property.
In the apartment scenario, right?
Right.
Not in the
Thank you.
industrial.
That clears me up. Thank you.
Right. We do already own the property across the street from the factory on Burr Street. But our agreement with Dr. Hurt is over a period of a few years. And we have different stages where we purchase and we get to actually select which piece of land we buy and in each of those property takedowns.
Okay.
So that's also part of the time frame. It's sometime the next 1 to 3 years. We purchase everything.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. Hey, Tim Carlson, I'm representing the fire department tonight, 36 years in the fire department, town chief. And I'm raising the same concerns I did when Tiger Fuel came to town. The water supply system in this town is not significant for a substantial fire. We brought this up to the county, and actually I have meetings later this week to address it further. But you have about an hour and a half of suppression water. Any significant fire, that's not enough time. So I think to rush this or to make a decision hastily without considering the impact it's going to have on the water consumption of the entire system, with Tiger Fuel coming in with the car that will be very short-minded and short-handed on your parts. And I would encourage you to fully do your homework and be aware the impact it'll have to the water supply, the impact it'll have to the fire department, the impact it'll have to the rescue squad. Because all those services are going to be required to some degree.
Maybe I have to clarify question related to actually a staff report up. Because I think you're right. It's worth taking our time to cross the T's and dot. So we have a previous report that was in our staff report from Mr. Puckett, who did not express concern
about the development in terms of staffing being able to respond to emergency.
Okay.
So my question would be, as we move forward, if you're having further conversations about that, what we can then add to those notes.
Oh, absolutely, we can have a whole lot. I can tell you just last night. That on the rescue side of things, there's one crew for Scottsville. When that crew is committed to another call, and you know, it's a 30+ minute drive to UVA. And then come back, what's the time on the scene, what's the time do you report that unit's out of service? So if you're the second call, you're waiting for that ambulance to come from Charlotte. So I would respectfully disagree with Chief Puckett, and he knows where I stand on that.
Do you have? And if you do have them, could we see average call response times in situations like that?
I have
Where,
some right here from last week. This is for rescue.
okay, where if Scottsville is already committed and we're having to bring in from, other rescue squads, fire, whatever,
Right.
how long that takes?
But it's gonna be drive time from the next ambulance. And I can speak from prior experience, about 6 to 9 months ago, had a car wreck right here in front of Scottsville Elementary. The closest ambulance was Western Albemarle coming out of Prozac.
Thank you.
So there's the thought. Yes, sir.
If I could add to something Tim said, about 3 years ago in this chamber, we had a discussion, and I've seen something in the Daily Progress that said, this was a statement by Captain Eggleston. I believe he's still captain of the Albemarle County Fire and Rescue. And his statement was, rural area, he's talking about Albemarle County now, rural areas should not expect the same level of service as urban areas surrounding Charlottesville. That's what was in the paper. And I was told he was misquoted, but I never saw a rebuttal. I doubt he was misquoted. But just to add to what Tim said, thank you.
Yes, sir. How are you? All right, sir. Thank you. We're good one. Appreciate your time tonight. I know it's a difficult decision or contemplation of a decision even. However, I think things are being overlooked. That is, Scottsville is already bigger than you guys represent. Scottsville is more like 15,000 people. We base that fact on food line alone. Food line here, out of a district of 25 food lines, is number 5. If you compare it to the Charlottesville stores, it outperforms it. And yet it's the smallest one. I mean, we have people that live 4 miles from the food line in Dillon. They shop in Scottsville because they drive through here, just don't need to drive 4 more miles out there, 4 more miles back home. I think your vote and your representing contemplation of this is way bigger than Scottsville as a town. You're really representing a community, as we've discussed here before many times. It's a community. It's not whether we're doubling in size. That, like Scottsville mentioned a while ago, we've already doubled in size and then some. Already before, not the 618 people, anything like that. It's the community. And so therefore, the impact is on the community. It's not just the town. Yeah, retail, police, fire, rescue. Yes, but we also have resources like just mentioned. The Albemarle County Service Authority has to be brought into this. Albemarle County has to be brought into this because they really hold this responsibility to us, especially since they're collecting all of the taxes. What are they going to do if they're saying this is the growth area?
what are they gonna do to accommodate for this? Because Scottsville itself, the town can't afford to take this on by itself. On the flip side, it's an industrial site. What people have not considered, and except one person that I know of that considered that site as an industrial site, is $500,000 worth of infrastructure there. The electrical service there is way oversized for anything anybody's talked about doing. But we could have that come in there by right. So gotta get our act together and really contemplate, not just everybody's opinion, just, oh, we're against this for this reason of traffic on Bird Street or Harrison Street or whatever. It's a much bigger decision than that. And yet, it seems like it's just a fad almost, but what's the vote gonna be for this? We got a lot of work to do to get this done properly and not destroy the Scottsville town while the community still grows. Because Scottsville itself can afford the infrastructure without taxation, without something, agreement with the county, something. So before all of these votes are counted, I think those meetings need to happen. And they need to happen where everybody can hear it here. Albemarle County needs to come to Scottsville. The representation needs to come in here, but the service authority, not just a few, we have our supervisor, but as a whole, they need to speak for the board of supervisors when they come. Not just, yeah, we could think about that. We will do it or we won't do it. And water, that's a huge responsibility, hour and a half. I mean, look at the big fires we had here before. A pitiful ability to be able to fight. Everybody was doing their absolute level best. But it was pitiful not to be able to do better. So I ask for your help and your consideration and think beyond Scottsville town. You're affecting the whole community that I'm proud to be part of.
Thank you, George. Here to say a couple things and hold most of the comment. As it was brought up by someone else today, if you guys are choosing to have a public hearing, it's something you have to address today or next month, or the month, whatever. But you can't assume there's going to be a public hearing. You have to call for it. Motion has to be passed. Has to be done. So if you're going to consider that, the something that needs to come out of this meeting today. Just to address with David. With government services, we addressed that impact study that the staff did. And we reached out ourselves. I personally reached out to David and dealt with him before in the past. And a couple of things that he brought out was that when a new facility comes in, everything has to come up with code, all that kind of good stuff. So his point was he wasn't concerned because it would have to all come up with code. He wasn't saying that there was no impact or it wouldn't have to come, that there wouldn't be stuff that have to do for it to come up with code. And his point was also too that a fire suppression system usually puts the fire out, and the firemen, the firefighters responding are there to not to clean up, but I can't think of the right word, but you understand, they're there to go in and make sure it's all taken care of. The issue is when the fire suppression system doesn't work. And that's what I think they're addressing here, and they're telling me that we've got some major issues with that kind of stuff. So then he also admitted that he wasn't that fire marshal. He was a deputy fire chief, and so he put me in touch with a fire marshal who I forget his gentleman's name. And he reiterated the same thing and then had concerns about how we would have to get water and how the pumping station, there would have to be multiple vehicles to one of those filling up and getting water down and when the system failed. And he also pointed out that the pipes are 5-inch and they would need to be brought up to a minimum of 8-inch. So they'd have to be torn up and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more to it than just there's no problems. That's not the issue. The original the deputy fire chief was saying that we have to make it work, but there will be work involved in getting it done. So that's where I think there's a little bit of discretion on what they're saying. You're kind of saying too. So the report doesn't necessarily reflect that, and that's what we pulled out when we went over the government services. Thank you, Matthew. Supervisor Price, step forward.
Good evening, everybody, and I'm going to speak to the audience, not to the council. Thank you, Mayor. I'm not a project, I'm the supervisor that represents the Scottsville Magisterial District. First thing, I want to be very clear. I formally have no opinion, I make no public statements, and I make no decision on matters that fall within the jurisdiction of the town of Scottsville, the Albemarle County School Board, the University of Virginia, or the city of Charlottesville. Not my place. This is a decision for your town council to make that decision. But I come to these meetings, and I appreciate everyone else coming here, because government only works when people participate. I come here so I can hear what you have to say for those things that do impact the areas within our jurisdiction. And sir, I appreciate your comments. I've been taking notes on the things that fall under Albemarle County. And clearly the decisions that you make here today, they have an impact on the county, and I should be able to go back to the county and let them know what those impacts may be, regardless of what your town council decides. So I just want to make sure everyone understands. I'm not here, again, this is not a decision for me to make. It's a decision for your town council to make based upon what they believe is the right decision after looking at all the facts and listening to all of you. But I do take back to the county the information that I can so that we can continue to provide the best services for you. And I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that's why I'm here. Not because I'm in favor or opposed or anything. That's up to you and your town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Okay, any others? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to address, calls for, I know that, Mr. Clark made mention of service for the fire department. I would have a question about an analysis for calls for service for police. And I was kind of hoping I'd see at the meeting. I'd be curious about that.
You can leave Matt or Javier contact information.
Pretty sure.
Chief provides us with that once a month. If this would have been a regular work session, he would have provided us with last month's data today. Not a regular session.
Right.
But, yeah, we can get that to you.
Yeah, we'll make a point about that. I mean, I know services in general, but just the police.
Yeah.
Analysis.
Yeah, let one of those guys know how to get in touch with you. We'll see what you can do. All right. Quick.
So I got dressed up to come. So you can get me, appreciate that. You're gonna get my thoughts. Okay. So nothing's gonna change in my mind. From now until the 27th January or what on this potential project. And I sort of want to let you know, the due diligence that I've done, that I've asked to be done. Okay, and so I'm giving you a little insight. Maybe you can chew on it a little bit, but I don't think there's anything that can be done. Okay. I asked your numbers are something. Okay, you got a report provided by town staff. I asked the question. I questioned it. I reached out to Gregory Woods, town manager of Orange, Craig Buckley, chief of police for the town of Louisa. And they questioned, or I questioned the accuracy of the police impact that was done. Being not accurate. The
Kevin, I
park section,
apologize. Where were these two locations?
It was a town manager of Orange, his name is Gregory Woods. And then Craig Buckley, chief of police for the town of Louisa. Okay, the park section was another section. I have been in front of you all for 12 months. Report deemed not acceptable. Then we looked at then I said, well, I need to take myself out of this and be unbiased. Okay, so then I reached out and looked, should the fiscal and service impact report be relied upon if prepared by a locality or developer? Fortunately, Echelon had done something in Winchester. there is an article. I reached out to Mr. Tim Humans, who put it out in his article that something had been prepared. He sent me a copy of it. I was able to review it. That was paid for by Echelon for that community. I also spoke with Ariel Goldring of SPACs and Associates, who created a market and fiscal impacts analysis for Winchester Grove in the city of Winchester for Echelon. I asked, we have something from staff. What do you think? If we had something from a developer, what do you think? Advise not to accept a fiscal service impact from applicant or locality if created by either party. This would not be credible and extremely unwise, was shared by both the director of planning and Ariel Goldring, who prepares these. It would only be credible if prepared by an unbiased third party was there. Okay. If we take all of that away and say, what if we have is accurate? We have a problem. We have no current town real estate tax, was my question. So I need to dig deeper. Let's go to each of the Echelon property areas that they have developed in and determine what is there. I wanted to reach out and see, was there any town where Echelon had a lost project that had no real estate tax? I reached out to Woodstock Lofts, down in Woodstock, Virginia, Pulaski Lofts, down in Pulaski, Carolyn Smith, Imperial Lofts, down in South Boston. I spoke to Daniel Crosby, couldn't get the manager there, but Daniel. Culpeper Lofts, down in Culpeper, Howard Partel, Chapman Lofts, down at Chapman, Susan Shelton, Halifax Lofts, down at Halifax, Janet Lawson, Cape Charles Lofts, down at Cape Charles. You can see the loft, which is pretty cool. They're bringing the apartments there. But we had a 13 cent per 100. We have a 36 per 100 in Pulaski, 27 cents per 100 in South Boston, 0.082 in the town of Culpeper. Chatham was 0.25, Halifax is 0.19, Cape Charles is 0.2159. I bring this up because we have zero. The answer that you all are looking for is, it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't fundamentally work in the town for what we're doing. And I know that's not what you all want to have, and I was sort of unbiased and backed it up and said, I need to be unbiased, but it just doesn't work. Has nothing to say about Echelon. I asked the question, what did the development, how was it? All positive. This has nothing to do with Echelon, has nothing to do with Southern Development. It just has to do with their town structure. We are not designed for this type of development. We need to address this forthcoming. We have 90 days from the time when we end, as I recall, whenever the public, I don't know how that works on a legal standpoint, but we don't have the time to address this. Unfortunately, this is going to have to be declined.
Okay. Devin Lawson. I just have a question. I'm a man of few words. Who in the right mind would want all these 500 vehicles coming along off Bird Street and the Rat 20 all day long? I don't know, but the town put up with a bunch of tractor trailers 24 hours a day for 40 years. Put up what? They put up with a bunch of tractor trailers 24 hours a day for 40 years. Put in tractor trailers and bringing stuff in for you to eat and sleep. They want just running, and all these people gonna be able to people. All these people will be running back on the college field and spending money over there. And I'm gonna have to have a red light up at my house to get in there to ride. Okay?
Hi, my name is Bill Delaney. I live downtown, corner of Jordan Hills. We've been there a few years now. There's a recurring theme to what people are coming with concerns and imploring you to consider them. And that's one of infrastructure, whether it be water, fire, police, traffic. I went to the planning commission meeting and saw that a traffic study had been done. Do you know that the traffic study that was validated by VDOT consisted of half a dozen monitors that were put out for 24 hours to monitor traffic for one day? And of course, it came back and said it didn't. I understand that there was a big plant back there that operated for many years. But you know what? It hasn't for quite a number of years. I know what traffic is like for me driving downtown, getting out from Bird Street. It's not easy. It will fundamentally change everything around you. I don't dispute that these developers have very much a right to develop the property back there. The only thing I implore you is we have to have a good plan for the infrastructure. We have to not be reactive once it's already done, but know what we're going to do in advance and have it well planned out and funded and thought out before you jump in to having to be stuck in a position of reacting to a negative situation. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Well, I was going to withhold my comment, but everyone else has spoken. Haven't said one thing that everyone else has to pay attention to when you're doing your due diligence, and this is your requirement. One, find out how many police calls a 205 apartment or multifamily apartment complex really requires. Ask Mark County Police or Scottsville Police. They'll tell you not what our numbers are, but what that kind of high density development requires from the police. And then to say it has a non-negligible physical impact is not credible. The second thing, Kevin pointed out, checking out other jurisdictions, call South Boston. From the South Boston newspaper, yourgv.com. Staff report stated September 27th, 2017. South Boston Town Council members unanimously authorized the issuance and sale of $5.6 million in general obligation bonds to finance the renovation and improvement of the Toltecs Imperial Building located at 216 Mineral Street in South Boston, following a public hearing Monday night. In July, the council issued a special use permit to allow the Toltecs Imperial Building to be used for mini storage units and as an open warehouse, and for a special use permit to allow residential and commercial uses as well, with 41 apartments planned and possibly another 11 units. Echelon Resources developer Edwin Gaskin approached the town council supporting and spoke in favor of the bonds to be floated. And in fact, the bonds were floated. And then according to the town manager, Gaskin will be paying back the town who floated the bonds $250,000 a year for the next 20 years on the project. So in 3 months, are they going to come ask us to float bonds? This was 50 apartments. This is 205 apartments, and the town of South Boston covered the debt. If you go on the website in South Boston to look at their lots, they're called Imperial Toltecs, Imperial lots is what they're called. They're there. They're on there on Trulio. They're still for rent. They're still for sale. There's a project. They're split. They're beautiful. But the town of South Boston, 5.6 million, they covered the bonds. Now, they'll tell you, and it's true, they got some of it back in historic improvement credits. The town report talks about us needing the historic improvement credits. Is this the financing plan? Do your due diligence and ask them if that's the next thing they're going to ask us to do.
Good evening, I'm Thomas Stevens. Firstly, I'd just like to echo, I've heard a lot of people mention the whole issue of infrastructure. That was definitely first thing that came to my mind when I heard about this project was thinking about, if we're looking at, let's say roughly a 200 unit complex, if we're gonna average 2 people per unit, there's 400 people right there. If you've already heard, how's that gonna affect their police, their fire, EMS? How's that gonna affect our post office? How's that gonna affect the internet? I would really hope that they would get Firefly out there, because if they don't, that's not to mention the competitor, that's it. Also, you know, our grocery store, we have, as someone else already mentioned, we have one grocery store here in town. But we know it's not simply just the people in the town of Scottsville. There are people across the street in Buckingham. Their nearest food line is in Dillon. So how are we gonna be able to sustain that? We already know it looks like they have empty shelves and all these supply shortages after the pandemic. So you have 400, 600 people now, what's that gonna look like? And food line, are they gonna be able to expand? We're gonna have to get another grocery store, what's that gonna look like? Secondly, as a teacher myself, my next concern is, well, what's that gonna look like for Albemarle County schools, especially the elementary school here, Scottsville Elementary? Are they gonna be able to have enough space? Is it not simply just a matter of trying to find extra teachers to expand classrooms, which that alone is a challenge now in education, but are they gonna have to expand that? What's that gonna look like? And that also feeds into Walton and Monticello. And then the next thing too would be, is this area, as it grows, is it becoming more desirable? Or our property assessment is gonna go up, and then of course, anyone with a mortgage knows, what does that mean? Now your taxes go up, your mortgage goes up, so now we have this larger growing area, and it's costing us more. And of course, too, what I've heard from others too, is that this town just has a nice small town charm. I've been a lifelong resident of Albemarle County, and my wife and I recently moved here about 6 months ago. I could have chosen other places to go to, but I came here, it wasn't simply, oh, here's the one place we can find a house. We like this area. It's a great small town charm, but it's nice. We can go 20 minutes down 20. I can be in Charlottesville, no problem. But 20 minutes, I'm out here. I have space, I have privacy, a nice small town charm. So adding some huge development here is just going to take that charm away.
Hey, my name is Kendall Dix. I'm a renter. I live just over the line into Esmont, but I kind of consider myself part of the greater Scottsville community. I'm here all the time, socialize and frequent a lot of the businesses that are here. I think there's been a lot of appeals to fear here and a lot about what we don't want to see. But I think, you know, we should, the council and everyone here should be asking, what kind of world do we want to live in? I don't know what everyone would say. I know that I want to live in a place where there's an abundance of safe and healthy homes that a variety of people can afford. I think we need a lot of different types. I think we need single family home. I think we need farms. I think we need apartments. And probably other things I'm not thinking of. I think we all know our region is growing. Charlottesville's been growing quite a lot. They don't seem to be building homes fast enough. I think it's pushing people into the county. So I think we know that Scottsville is going to grow, and I think that we need to ask ourselves, what kind of growth do we want? You know, do we want to replicate other places where the farms around us become housing developments? Do we want large parking lots replacing some of the beautiful properties that surround the town of Scottsville? That's not what I want. And I'm not sure that I want to live next to a renewed industrial site either, that it's loud, potentially lots of lights, lots of noise, potentially even toxic. But I don't want to appeal to fear. I think that we get to choose. You know, this might not be the right developments for us. I don't really know. You all get to make that decision, but I just know that I want Scottsville to be a welcoming place for everyone, young and old, rich and poor. I moved here because I love it. It has a special character, but I don't think that means that we try to put it in a case where it's never going to change, because we know that's not possible anyway. So I think we should all sort of think about that. But I would say that part of it not being in a case is like we said, we live in a region, we live in a state. Charlottesville is growing. What happens there affects us. So we know that nationally, regionally, locally, we do live in a housing shortage. A lot more could be built in Charlottesville. But I think we know just from word of mouth or on a Facebook group that people around here are looking for rentals too. And I know that it's, you know, it can be very difficult for people to find them. So what if we did want, if we were going to have more rentals for people, you know, I I personally think that makes a town stronger. I think there needs to be places for people who work here. I don't think that every single person can own a single family home around here. I think what kind of rentals do we want? I mean, the way that we need to think about this is not sort of looking back or what we are now, but what we want to be. And I think that the way that a lot of urban planning goes is, you would like to have some density where people can walk into town. Ideally, hopefully there would be a way for people to get into Charlottesville without using their cars, so that we don't have more cars on 20 and making everyone's life miserable. But for us to get all of these things that we want, I think, we've had people talk about wanting there to be more healthcare services here. And I think we've also said for that to happen, there has to be more people here. So in a lot of ways, we're talking about how we don't have the infrastructure to support any future growth, when instead, I think we could be looking at it the other way around. The more people that we have here, the more ability we have to grow in the way that we want to grow. So again, I couldn't say for sure if this is the perfect use for the site, but based upon what they are sort of saying, it seems to include some of the things that we want, affordable housing set asides, forward-looking things like EV charging, money for sidewalks and trails. Maybe if the water infrastructure doesn't afford it, maybe they can for that. Maybe they can do a payment. If there's no real estate tax here, maybe they can do a payment in lieu of taxes. You see that? You see people talking about that with the University of Virginia. I think you can do things that are sort of creative when it comes to that. And there's also there's so much federal money coming down right now with the bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act. There could be money that we could be looking at to get more money for water infrastructure and things like that. But again, having the larger tax base, I think, sort of helps make the case. So if you guys do choose to go forward, I hope that you get the best possible deal for everyone here. I think that you have a lot of influence over how that's going to happen, but I really hope that we're thinking forward, that we're trying to be inclusive of people that want to live here. And because I think that the community is only stronger by having a real sort of dynamic population. I think that includes people of all incomes, including renters, homeowners, affordable housing, and all of that. Thanks.
There. Person Lowe, I spoke at the last planning commission meeting, but I just wanted to go briefly with the with gentleman before me. Who was talking about how we want to expand Scottsville to accommodate people of all types and of all incomes and of all family units. There's a variety of folks that we want to have here. And I am totally in favor of having living like habitations that support all people. But recently, there was an anonymous letter brought forth to Echelon to confront some concerns, and Echelon responded with their own letter. And I'm quoting this from their answer. And it says, because the product type, we generate very few children. Across our portfolio of similar properties, we average 0.065 children per unit. So I don't understand how this type of apartment, not that we don't need more apartments and farms and using what we have already, I'm totally in favor of that, to expand and accommodate the people who want to live here, but is 200 apartments that only average 0.065 children going to accommodate lower income, higher income, any income? Don't people have children who live in Scottsville? I think we do. And as a representative of the younger generation who wants to raise their children here in Scottsville, I want to have a place that is conducive to that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
Kimberly Shiplet, and you guys all know me. I'm speaking in Stormtown. I'm sure you guys in here know me as well. So I am here. I understand that you guys want, or at least most people want growth. Scottsville's going to change no matter what you do. I live in Buckingham County. I can tell you right now, we're getting ready to have a bunch of solar fields. Some people are happy, some people are not. It happens. You can't make everybody happy. I commend you for the job that you guys have and for volunteering your time. It is a tough choice. You are representing not just the town of Scottsville, even though those are the people who voted you in the current seats that you're sitting in now. You are representing all of the Scottsville address. Go home, do the research, see how much that does involve. You're representing the schools, you're representing the fire department, you're representing the police department, rescue squad, part of Albemarle County for what you guys choose to decide. It affects everybody. The other thing is that if you guys want to see more affordable housing, indoor housing in general, because there is a need for housing, here's my question for you, for the entire town at this point. If that's the case, why are we taking property that could have apartments or rental of any sort and making them into Airbnbs? I'm not against an Airbnb. I'll tell you right now, my father does have an Airbnb. You're not getting me wrong. But if you want to see actual places to be able to rent in the town of Scottsville, why are we going and approving all these Airbnbs? It's nothing personal. I think Airbnbs are great, but in the town, that's something you guys might want to consider in the future. I would also go and consider what the fire department is saying about the water source. That is a huge issue. As well as what people are saying about the schools. I know we had, Matt, you guys did a study on the schools and they were saying, yes, they could handle it. Person, correct? You're saying it's 0.065 children per apartment. Maybe the school isn't an issue, but is this what the town wants? Does the town want just adults, or do we also want kids? Do we want family related events? I can tell you, I just had an event on December 10th. We had what was Christmas wishes and baby goat kisses. We had Santa and we had baby goats dressed up for families to come. Whether or not you just came inside of our shop or if you wanted to come and have cute photo shoot with your children. Everybody in here has a tough decision to make. And I also applaud everyone who's asking questions and who's looking up state codes. And who's going and asking the attorney for Scottsville to go and ask them, what is our legal right of what we can and can't do? I can tell you right now, the majority of people in here are upset at the fact that it was waited until today to make a decision, and you guys didn't even include all of town council in this meeting. That is something that all of town council should have been part of, not just 3 parties. So going forward in any decision, whether or not we're just talking about the Scottsville lofts, that's something you guys might want to look at and have potentially a ruling that says, hey, when we have an issue like this, what is our plan as to how to remedy this before somebody has to take off work? I know you had to take off work so that you could review and prepare for this. That sucks. Financially, that sucks because everything's expensive nowadays. I know Matt has a hard job trying to keep up with everybody's concerns and questions. I mean, I can tell you that. I can tell you I've gone to Matt several times, and I even, what was it, Thursday, Friday, I spoke to you about issues with parking and painting and trying to make decisions there. A couple of young council know what that was about. There are a lot of issues that need to be handled. There's a lot of people that need to be contacted. I know they're saying Albemarle County Service Authority. We need to talk to them. We need to talk to Albemarle County. There's a bunch of resources out there. So why don't we go out and go find these resources, have them come to the town so that the public can also hear what's going on and see for themselves in person. If you guys want it, maybe if you get all these resources together to come to the town, the public will understand, hey, maybe this isn't as bad as what it seems. But until then, right now, it kind of seems like it's been a mixed message. And I'm sure all you guys on Facebook or any sort of social media or just walking up and down the town have seen that. There's a lot of mixed messages as to what's going on, including anybody's podcast, anybody's YouTube videos, or just sharing anything on social media whatsoever. It gives an opinion as to, okay, well, that's this person's opinion. I know you have a couple of videos, I believe, up there right now. I really, really, truly think that this could have been handled a little bit better tonight, including the fact that the email that was currently sitting over here on the table, which the town did not make enough copies of to hand to every person that was in here and should have been taken care of prior to your meeting starting, which I did come up and speak to you all about, to make sure that everybody can have a copy. I do think that this could have been handled differently. It states in the email that everybody should ask for a copy of at 1:19 p.m. on Friday of what was going on. Matt, you're here until 5 o'clock, correct? Why could we have not handled this and done a special call? I know you have helped me out with the color. We had a color change on my building, I'll tell you right now. In fact, I'm sure you're aware of that, correct? We had a color change in my apartment. I had asked, hey, we're running into an issue. We're getting ready to go, get on the cold weather. How can we handle this? This is something that you guys could have done similar to how you did the color thing and not waited until this evening. Going and posting it socially and on the town website. That's how many hours that could have been taken care of on Friday. Now, do not get me wrong, I don't know what the actual time frame is as to how long it has to be posted by. I'm sure your lawyer and or your rules can go and show you that. But this does need to be taken care of. You guys need to come up with a better process, whether it's town administrator, whether it's council, whether it's just in general, trying to consult with the lawyer as to what the Virginia codes are. Because it seems like there's some slight miscommunication as to where are we on this. Trying to get clarity to where everyone up here is on the same page. I don't think this is an issue of part of town council is trying to rush it, part of town council wants to drag it out. I don't think that's the case right now, and I don't think that's what the public's seeing. I think the public wants to see everybody has their ducks in a row. And as of right now, how you guys started this, it doesn't look like anyone in here has their ducks in a row, including over here. If the minutes are incorrect, your ducks aren't in a row. I'm sorry, but you're not. You want to show the town that you deserve the seats that you're currently sitting in or the positions that you guys are currently in, you need to have your ducks in a row. So, but like I said, I do understand the hard decision that you guys have to make. And as individual people, I can appreciate that because life is not easy. I'm sure everybody in here can tell you that life is not easy right now. It sucks. It feels like everybody's staring at you and pointing a finger at you. I'm sure it does. And that you're being, I'm sure you guys are feeling the heat from Echelon, Mr. Gaskin. I'm sure you're feeling the heat in this room right now. I get it. I really do. I applaud you for wanting to come to town and seeing what you can do with it. I do. However, as it looks right now, it looks like most of the town is showing you what they want and or what they don't want. Maybe going from this meeting, we can kind of come to a solution of, okay, well, maybe they decide they want to revise something. Like you guys are asking, is there a time frame at which if they want to offer a prosper, that it has to be done by? Maybe that's something that you guys need to vote on tonight, or have a ruling going forward in your next work session, saying, hey, going forward, whether or not it's this project or a different one, how do we handle this so that we don't have a public who's currently in this room taking their time away from their families? I have 3 kids at home right now that my husband's gonna put into bed. Taking time away from their families to come out here and speak about this. So I ask you all, please take into consideration everybody is what they have to say tonight. Also, we need to determine a date, which I don't know if that's been settled yet, but when you do determine a date, there are the holidays. Everybody in here, I'm sure, wants to celebrate a holiday, whether or not you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, whatever it may be. Try to make it so it's not a holiday. By all means, if it is a holiday, including Christmas Day, I can promise you, I will still be here in front of you. Whether or not I have to leave.
First of all, I want to say thank you for what you shared, and I will say the mayor had an agreement for us to actually have this public meeting in January. That was the original plan until it was changed, and it was not changed.
I was here for that meeting.
And I will simply say that agreement that we had, I actually made a personal appeal.
I was here for that meeting.
So I'm simply saying that the information that the process that we've gotten into this evening is one that didn't have to happen, and it was happening because half the town council was trying to rush the process.
Now, the problem that you're in right now, Mr. Briscoe, has to do with this email right here. This is the situation that you're in because legally you have problems right here because it was not by town sitting right here. Like I said, I don't know what your requirement is as far as public notice. Like I stated, Matt, by all means, if you can pull it up and let me know, please do. But this was the issue. It had absolutely nothing to do upon whether or not you, I don't know who it was, but you all agreed on to a certain date in January. I did hear about that. I was here in person for that meeting. Or whether or not you guys are being accused of trying to push it. I understand that you were out of surgery. I'm actually personally, honestly, so shocked to see you here in person. Because I know that you did come out of surgery.
I'm shocked to see me here.
By all means, congratulations for being able to come to the meeting. I'm glad that you are. I truly am. I do think you're represented equally over Zoom or whatever channel that's considered. I'm not great as far as Zoom goes, I'll tell you that right now. But you were definitely heard. Everybody in this room could hear you. So your opinion, your vote, what you had to say, everybody heard. I'm sure I don't know who else was in here for that meeting, but I can promise you it was heard. It was recorded, correct? It was recorded. Does the minutes reflect that? What his opinion and vote and everything was, does the minutes reflect what it was to make sure that he was included in this? Because everybody here was able to hear that. It was voted upon. I mean, you've got the public, I can tell you, I came to the planning commission meetings. You saw me at 2 different ones. For the planning commission meetings that I came to, I can tell you that the public is going and asking, and I'm sure Echelon doesn't want to see it take forever, but you guys have a certain time with which you can do this. The public is also not wanting it to take forever. You guys are caught between a rock and a hard place. I understand that. I run a business. I know what it's like to be caught between a rock and a hard place. I bet they're actually doing case in the last year and a half. Some of you in here might know it and some of you in here might not. But all means, if you want to ask about it, please come see me. And it had to do with my physical business. I really think if you guys want to push through and say, okay, let's try to do this a little bit faster than we've done other ones, because the public wants to see us move faster, or maybe the developer wants to see you move faster, so they're not sticking their neck out forever and a day. That's what you're up against. It's not a matter of his opinion, her opinion. It's a matter of, are you guys trying to move something? Are you not trying to move something? You're stuck in a position of whether or not, okay, well, now you're seeing as you're taking too long. There's no right or wrong answer there. No matter what you do, somebody's going to accuse you of something. Okay, you can't make everybody happy. It's just part of life. It's including this decision. You're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to do the best that you can do, and hopefully you do the best for the town as well as for the Scottsville community. Do the best that you can do. That should be the motto going forward. It's literally do the best that you can possibly do. If you can maybe go walk around town, go visit all the businesses, go get their opinion about it. We had a reporter come down. I'll tell you, I gave the reporter what she wanted. I understand that it could have put my business at risk. I fully will tell you that now. But I chose to give an opinion, and I didn't say I was for or against. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not saying I'm for or against. It's a matter of going and seeing what does everybody want to have. Maybe going around and knocking on people's doors and asking them, hey, what do you think? What would you like us to check out more? Is there anybody that you think would be of higher authority that needs to be at these meetings? I can tell you right now, I wanted the whole entire police department and I wanted the entire fire department here tonight. That's what I wanted. There are a couple people that I
5 minutes.
Because I feel like that was important to know what their opinion was on it and where the facts on it. The response times from the rescue squad, Albemarle County Rescue Squad, whoever's in that position, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is only run by a 2-man crew right now or 2-woman crew. I'm not sure if it's guys or girls. You need to have them here to ask them for their response times and their opinion of this. You need to reach out to Albemarle County and ask them, because these things haven't been done. We can do all the studies we want to do, but until you actually reach out to these individuals of what's going on, it needs to come here. The people need to know what are the actual facts. You printed out a whole sheet of actual facts that you wanted to present tonight. His dad was telling you actual facts. Come on, guys, bring the people who have actual facts. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
30 seconds for. I'd like to say.
Make it quick, George.
On Friday, you knew there was a possible problem. Mr. Bowling solved the answer for that in 10 minutes tonight. Why couldn't that have happened Friday? If everybody didn't. It took about 4 hours. But I mean, might have, but overall, his general opinion with no written documentation in front of him, he gave us an opinion in 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. All right, sir.
Hey everybody, my name is Sarah Woods. Just really quickly, I wanted to note that a lot of people online tonight were having extreme difficulties as the Zoom website link that was put online was incorrect. So there's been a lot of feedback back and forth online that people were not actually able to get online to participate in the Zoom meeting. I just thought I would put that out there. So maybe that can be corrected the next go around. I also wanted to caution about council members across the board revealing their bias for this project one way or the other. Town council should remain fairly neutral in their bias, whether that comes out in discussion with individuals or whatnot. It's probably not ideal to promote their particular role in one way or the other, because it can cause some difficulties in the decision process. So trying to remain unbiased would be ideal. I also want to say that there have been a lot of comments about fear and fear of change. I repeatedly comment that I don't think that there is a fear of change, nor do I think that there is a fear of growth in this town. I think people want to know more information and they want to participate. As you can see from tonight, people want to feel involved in the process. Those conversations may have happened for years. It's only been before the public for a couple of months. It is not surprising to hear this many comments from people because they weren't necessarily asked in advance before it came forward. So perhaps that might be taken into account instead of continually stating that the town is either misunderstanding, misinformed, or have fear of the situation. It kind of puts forward an idea that people are not educated enough, or people are not aware enough about their surroundings to feel the way that they feel, and that's not fair. The town has a right to make a decision, to make an informed decision, to negotiate this and to come up with the best plan possible. There shouldn't be you either have to accept this as is, or it goes away forever. There should be some give and take, and I think that that's what a lot of the community is hoping for. That's what a lot of the community has voiced, and I would just really hope that there's a change of vocabulary going forward, both to maintain an unbiased nature, but also to show that the town is generally accepting of change and they're interested. It's just that their views might not agree with your views across the board of what should be in a location, but that doesn't make them fearful. Change that idea about fear of change to maybe hope for change, and maybe they're hoping for something different than you're looking forward to. That doesn't make it any less valid. Feelings are valid, and that's something that everybody has to accept. People want information, so the more information you can provide that's easy to find, that's shareable, that would be my recommendation across the board. But I really did get up here to mostly speak about the problems that people have been having across the board on Facebook with trying to get onto that Zoom meeting. And there were a lot of people who were interested in trying to be a part of this, but simply couldn't get access.
I'm Tim's son. He came up here, he stole my thunder a little bit, but before I leave, I was gonna clear up. I handed y'all a piece of paper. I worked for Albemarle County Fire Rescue for almost 3 years when I graduated college. I recently left in August of this year. I work at 17, which is our rescue squad. Albemarle County is pretty dynamic in our fire rescue services. So our volunteer firehouse is strictly volunteers, 100%. That's the last one in Albemarle County. And then our rescue squad is 100% career. So when they get a call, they serve about 6,000 people in the 24590 zip code. We don't go in Buckingham anymore. But for Albemarle County and Savannah and mutual aid to Nelson, it's about 6,000 people. On average, Medic 17 runs about in the data that I got from last month, about 20 to 28 calls a week. Out of those, about 20 to 25% of those, Medic 17's not able to run because they are on another call. So we're waiting for Medic 11 from Charlottesville or Medic 16 from Pantops to come down here. So the weeks that I took and they all added up together was November 24th through the 30th. I gave you all that piece of paper. There was 20 calls that week for Scottsville Rescue Squad. Those 20 calls, 16 were responded by Medic 17. The other 4 were Medic 11. Call number 1 that Medic 17 could not respond to was everything's redacted for HIPAA. It was a pediatric breathing problems call, so a toddler having trouble breathing. And their parents waited 17 more minutes from an ambulance from Scottsville to come down here than the 5 minutes that it would take for medic 17. So the difference was 17 minutes, 15 miles. The second call was a chest pain call. Difference for that was 16 minutes and 11.9 miles. An unconscious person, if medic 17 was to respond, this is a call that was just in their first year, it would have taken 17 minutes. Medic 11 responded, it took them 34 minutes, the difference of 17 minutes. The last one was a sick person call. Medic 17 responded, it took them 2 minutes. Medic 11 responded, which they did, it took them 21 minutes. The difference was 19 minutes. US Census Bureau states that about 2.5 people live in each household, whether it be one apartment, 3 apartment. So that's adding over 500 people in our town, which is doubling it just about overnight. Change is inevitable, that's what everybody's been saying. But that would take the population from 6,000 to 65 and whatever change it is. It's a growth of 8.6%, and 17s did. And I know that I worked for Chief Bucket for many years, he's a great guy. But they are about 8 to 10 years from implementing any second medic units in any system, even Station 18, which is in right around the urban ring. And that's the busiest medic unit. They've been begging for help for years, and they still haven't gotten it. They're expanding so big, which is a great problem to have for a fire department that is growing, but they can't keep up with the service area they have. So adding that many people, and then I know that if one of my family members were to get sick, I want Medic 17 available, which 20% of the time right now in the current system we have, they're not available. We had 518 more people in our town. That's 518 more calls that could happen within the next 20 minutes. I know everybody in here has called the ambulance or seen an ambulance come to a house, a loved one that's happened at least once. So we can take that into consideration, that I take it to your loved one, that you want that Medic 17, that you want it in-house, you want it coming by, everybody lives in the town, if you serve, it's gonna be there fast. But if you're waiting for Medic 11 or Medic 16, it's gonna be 25 minutes at best. And that's with lightning sirens coming down Route 20 with no deer. I've done it before, it's tough. And I think there's a lot of considerations that aren't being taken into effect by just skimming the top. So if y'all can take that into consideration, I'll be back next month, so I'm on the record too. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for everybody's Chief Whiz file, Matthew's grandfather, Tim's dad, Wayne Carr, received his 50-year pin from the fire department the other night for dinner. So congratulations. Anybody else before I bang together?
Do you want to hear from any comments online?
You got some?
We have pretty good attendance. I see a couple of hands raised, and I do apologize for the mix-up in length, but there's about 30 folks on the Zoom here. I can use the hand raise feature on there, and we'll recognize you one at a time. I'll prompt you to unmute on your phones. And remember, this is not the formal public hearing, which is coming later, but rather the public forum for the regular meeting. That's the status of the comments. Ms. Caltabiano, I saw you first. Give just a moment while this room clears.
Ready for me?
Yes, we can hear you okay.
All right. Hi, good evening. So I will keep this brief because I know that you guys have a long evening and you've already heard from a lot of people. I made some comments at the the planning commission meeting that I would like to reiterate, but I don't want to spend a lot of time going into detail here. I would just ask that you guys review the YouTube video from that night and hear our conversation in more detail. It may have come across that I'm opposed to this project, but I'm not opposed to the project. I think apartments are a good idea, and I think this could do a lot for our town. But I think it could be better. And I'm actually impressed with Echelon that they're paying attention and they know that they could do better. So thank you for putting forth some extra proffers, and I would encourage the town council to review those the video from that planning commission meeting. Reach out and talk to me or any of the other planning commissioners if you'd like to hear more information from us on why we made the decisions we made. I would love to talk about it if anyone wants to get in touch with me. I would encourage those who are on the fence to remain open-minded. Those who have already made their decision, why? Please don't make your decision yet. There's a lot to be considered. There may be a lot of people speaking before you today that say that this is a bad idea, that there's no infrastructure. Time and again, Mr. Lawless has presented us with information showing that we do have the infrastructure, we do have the water. You know, I could go on, and I don't really want to. I want you guys to have a good evening, but we can make this happen. It just needs to be a good deal. I'm concerned mostly about the budget, making that balance without raising property taxes. I am concerned about sidewalks. I'm not concerned about traffic. And I think any other issues that we have can be worked out over the next couple of years while this project comes to fruition, if you vote for it. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. Turn on my camera too. Quite a meeting tonight. Thank you all for being here and the time you're putting in. I think you'd all agree that in order to keep Scottsville affordable and accessible to everyone, we need to make policies that provide economic opportunity to all of our current residents. The economic benefits of attracting new residents to town, new customers to our businesses, and protecting current rental inventory will do far more to improve the economic state of the town and its residents than a light industrial development that only expands the lowest segment of our business taxes, increases demand on the current rental inventory, and negatively impacts the historic district that we rely on for tourism, dining, and hospitality. If the factory were to revert to an industrial use that brought in jobs, there would immediately be an increased demand on the limited inventory of apartments and housing that we currently have, and local landlords would have every incentive to raise rates quickly in order to take advantage of that higher demand. What keeps costs down in a period of higher demand is increased supply. And if we were to build these factory apartments, the increase in that inventory should work to protect existing rents in Scottsville in a couple of important ways. Our current limited supply prevents mobility among renters as they grow and earn more. Somebody who moves into a cheap apartment when that's all they can afford and now can afford something more expensive can't move out and make that available if they don't have somewhere to move to. By sticking people who could afford more in these units and not making them available to people who can afford less, we're restricting that mobility and making the cheapest apartments in town less accessible. The lack of current inventory can also potentially force somebody who improves their economic state to move out of town and take that economic benefit with them. This just keeps our town economically depressed. We have in front of us an offer to put market rate apartments on the market, on the market here in town. That would help us. Even when Scottsville residents get a housing choice voucher that provides subsidized rent to move into these market rate apartments, those vouchers often go unused and get returned because there isn't enough inventory. The reality is that countywide, there aren't enough market rate units for people to find housing once they have these vouchers. Echelon has already committed to making 40 of these apartments market rate. That means that they would fit the rental eligibility for the housing choice voucher program. Get Echelon to commit to accepting these vouchers. Give people an opportunity to find somewhere to use them. I think a lot of the problem that has come tonight seems to be stemming from calling this meeting when there's still meat on the bone. You have a developer here who is bending over backwards trying to work with you. And yet you're calling a public hearing in a month that historically you haven't even done business. You often take December off. I just don't see how this is doing the best you can do. And I really, really hope that you take this as an opportunity to look at everything that's on the table. You need to try to get the best you can for the future of our town. And you're not doing that rushing through this process. And I do think that that's what's happened tonight. I think that if you had kept to the January timeline, you wouldn't be in the situation tonight. And that's pretty hard to argue. I think what you have in front of you is an opportunity to extend this even further and continue working with the developer. Just please, you have to consider what's best for the future of this town and make sure you're doing everything you can to bring that to reality. And I don't think that an industrial development is that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Unsworth. Any more up there?
See no other raised hands.
Okay. So I'll close the public forum. Do we want to meet next Monday night and have the mayor's report and the committee reports and the staff reports, or do you want to go ahead and float away for another 45 minutes and do that?
I would like to meet next month, or next week, and also I'd like to maybe really consider when we're going to meet for the full public hearing next week too, and so we'll have plenty of time. So it should be in January sometime.
Calendar.
Well, let's not block in like we did last time. Let's just discuss it next week.
Yeah, let's discuss maybe the public hearing on the 9th of January and then the vote on the 17th, which would be.
Maybe we'll have to take a vote on that.
I would prefer keeping the public hearing in a regular public session. I really want to prefer the work session so that we can dig into the meat of these reports.
Or we could have a special time for it too.
I mean, I asked for a special time over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, let's discuss that next week.
I didn't get an email from you asking for a special time.
I sent it to everybody.
Nope. I
No,
didn't.
Did it come through?
Nope.
It's Friday.
But I don't think we should
Sorry.
decide. Let's decide. Let's decide next week. Let's not lock in now.
Plan on next, since this was.
That'll be an item.
Let's plan on next Monday being the work session.
Okay.
And then we can discuss when we want to do the next.
Let's nail down a date and vote on that date, because 3 people asked that we have a date before we leave tonight. I'm happy to vote on a date tonight. That we.
I think you owe the public a date to personally, out of everybody who showed up.
I'm sorry,
I said, I think you guys owe the public a date.
but they're not here now.
I'm sorry, why is this person allowed to speak from the gallery?
Good point. Good point. This is.
Public session is over. No one should be giving input from the gallery.
Who's that? Who's that?
Parliamentarian, I think. Next Monday night, we'll meet and we'll decide on a firm date for January. Point of order, can you vote on the work session?
Yeah, we can't do, that's right. Good point. I think it
Vote, set a date, we can just set a date.
no, I think we need to, I think we need to have a regular meeting next week.
Okay.
I need a vote
for calling.
All right, next week is a
Regular meeting, because then we could do these kind of things too. Yeah, and then we can make our decision.
I need to know how to format the agenda. That's all I have to do. Do you want it to look like a work session, just like the calling, taking votes?
No, just like this. No, no.
Yeah. This one is special, next week's ready.
Yeah, we could use some work sessions. You know,
Get some trouble with that.
Put the work session agenda as part of the regular meetings.
As the status of a regular meeting, but we're doing work session things.
Yeah.
And setting a date for.
and regular things too. What we didn't cover tonight.
That's not confusing. So
I am confused.
so next Monday is a public session.
Next Monday is our regularly scheduled council meeting for December.
Right.
And
This was a special meeting tonight. So on the regular meeting for December, next Monday, some of the items will be transmitted to the site.
Yeah. That sounds good. That sounds good.
But there will also be voting authority, and an action item will be to set the date for.
Yes.
The next public.
For January for the public hearing and vote on the plant project.
Can we expect an analysis of the 2 new properties?
That's a good question. This is an important question. I would also like to ask back to council, given what you've heard this evening, the limitations of your staff skills and the depth of the questions that you're looking for, I may not be the best person to do this work for you. Do you want to consider outsourcing this and getting some third-party opinions?
And our town attorney didn't make this analysis by himself. I mean, gives advice when we ask. Without employing somebody else.
I think, just if I say this correctly, I think he would tell us the legality of it, but you guys have to do the work.
The legal question is one of the reasonableness of the proffer. I think it involved a mix of legal and urban planning expertise. And I would certainly consult with our attorney and moving through that checklist defined in the law. But if you want the report to carry a different signature line than mine, I'll gladly defer that.
To who and how long would it take? Would we be able to? I know I'm asking a question you probably have no answer to right now, but if we're gonna vote next week on the date for the actual public hearing, can we reasonably set that date without knowing who is gonna review this and what time frame we're looking at?
Planning Commission has an on-call planner.
Okay.
Who can take these kinds of questions on and has done everything from in-house planning staff for cities and towns up to writing a full comprehensive plan. So I trust Berkeley Group and they know our ordinances. They're capable of that. The proffer statement that we got is relatively short and simple, as we saw. So I think getting that answer within a couple of weeks is reasonable. And then you'd have it in advance of your January work session.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
And if it isn't ready by January work session, are you fine with taking over and looking at it? To make
Yes,
sure that it's ready by then?
yes, you are. I'm obligated to deliver you my opinion for what it's worth.
So our public session after this analysis would be the last week in January. Are we gonna advertise it prior to the analysis? Or we wait for the analysis and then advertise the next public session?
I might ask if you have any interest in special meetings in January, or do you think your normal work session and your January business meeting will suffice to keep this moving forward?
There's just so I interrupt you just for a second, there's obviously when you hear people from here tonight, a lot of people are unhappy just so it's clear, we didn't know either until the last second about, I mean, we heard that there was a pro-op, we didn't know until the last second that the meeting wasn't gonna happen as we thought, but.
It's very confusing. I apologize to
Yeah,
everyone.
but all that to say, in fairness to the public who's here, what is the quickest way that we can get the answer to the pro-op done, so it answers Eddie's question about then having a way to then clearly publicize, because we need to have that so we can then call the meeting in.
I can give notice of the proffer's submission immediately. We have it now, so I can say there will be a public hearing on this content. And I can show everybody what that proffer statement is. The evaluation of its reasonableness might take a little bit longer, but I'd like to update, have already updated the website to show the proffer statement. I did that today. So folks can see it, but they won't see the staff report for a little bit longer.
So these is about.
Matt, you were talking about having the thing done in a couple of weeks by outsourcing it. Is that reasonable?
I think so.
Then so you're going to have the thing in hand before the January meetings, both the work session and the regular meeting.
I would certainly like to do that. The packet that you get for the work session would include this staff report.
Right. That's what needs to happen, and that sounds like that is what's going to happen.
I think that's
learn what the schedule of this person is that you want to have help do this.
Right. If you were doing your January 9th work session, you'd get that packet on the 4th or the 5th. And that's doable between then and now and then.
Okay. Excuse me, I just wanted to try to get some clarity. I didn't understand.
Sure.
Doesn't look like it's that difficult then to have this heard on your regular scheduled monthly meeting.
Work session on the 9th and business meeting on the 17th.
What's the deadline? Is there a deadline for us to decide on this?
It's 1 year.
All right.
It becomes for you.
There's no deadline?
Yes, there is a deadline.
1 year?
1 year from the date it comes before you. So you've got a time.
So we got time.
Yes, yes.
I'm just saying right now, I personally like not have anything except a public hearing. Because I just feel like it's gonna take a long time and I don't want to cover other business. I just think it's too confusing. So maybe have a special meeting or just dismiss the regular meeting or whatever.
Okay.
Well, you can just call it the regular meeting and have one agenda item.
Yes, yeah, that'd be good.
That would be preferable.
I would like that
Yeah.
too,
Schedule.
like we did today, almost.
Yeah, but on a
Yeah.
regular day.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey. Y'all got anything else on their mind? Motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
Second,
They all there?
aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Those who